Hello, everybody. Welcome. Namaste. It's really nice to have you here. This is now, I think, about the fourth time I've tried this video. I tried to go outside for everyone because I like to practice what I preach and sit in the sunshine and sit on the earth. But my camera card was dying. So here I am on Zoom again. Oh well, whatever. It's the message is more important. So I want to share this with you. Yeah, if you're new here, welcome. I share messages about mental health, spirituality, personal evolution, and growth. And yeah, today I want to talk to you guys about a topic which is kind of dear to my heart because for all of my life, I've been very, very sensitive emotionally. And I've really had to learn what I'm now currently calling emotional mastery. So, how do I work with these emotions? How do I actually benefit from them rather than having them work kind of against me or as obstacles in my life. I mean, an example of that would be years ago when I would have wanted to do something, but I would have felt really down, really sad, maybe even depressed, and would be unable to go and do that thing. So for a lot of my life, I found that, my emotions seem to have dragged me down. Conversely, when I'm in a good mood, I can float way too high, where I actually feel quite agitated, restless. They have words, pathologizing words for these in mental health, like hypomania or mania or hypomania, or elevation. But I just know that I'm floating too high. So I like to use my own language. I'm just floating too high. I'm really blissed out. I'm really excited, but I'm not grounded and I find it hard to function. So over the years, I've used myself as my own guinea pig and learnt, the three levels that I'm about to describe to you here, which don't come from a textbook or from anybody else. It's just, you know, ideas I've had, a way of kind of packaging the information, hopefully neatly and nicely for you, so that you can reflect on your own journey and you can think about where am I at in my emotional mastery? And if you're only at sort of level one or two, it can then open up your view so you can see a little ahead and go, okay, this is what I'm learning, right? Because it's all about learning. The levels are not good or bad, and level one is not worse than level two or three. They're just different stages of growth and learning. So when you kind of look at it like that, you appreciate that wherever you are right now is absolutely perfect for you and I guess take an attitude of being curious and enjoying learning if you can, using your own life as a sort of laboratory to discover what life is all about. Uh, so so the levels I will go ahead and describe, but a kind of disclaimer, I suppose, is that I'm very acutely aware that um, they're only as far as I can see, and I can see no further than how far I can see. So I can't present levels beyond the level of my experience. And therefore, some of you might be watching this and think, well, that's all pretty basic, Louisa. I'm striving ahead to level 4, 5, 6 and beyond, in which case that's awesome. So, pop some comments in the comments section if you have experiences that are kind of beyond these levels, or if you want to just talk about what level you're at and share in the community. I have to say, when people do comment or like or subscribe to my videos, I do get a bit excited. So because I make these, just purely to share, and it's really nice to get some kind of feedback from out there that you guys are enjoying it. So please like or share or comment or subscribe if you enjoy it. Cool. All right, so getting right along, I'm going to discuss, first of all, the first level. That makes sense to talk about that. And I call this level react and repress. So there's kind of two parts to it. Reacting is just the primal instinctive reaction, emotional reaction that we have as humans and mammals, especially, exhibit strong emotional reactions. So, especially around, the survival things like fear. Um, if you look at little babies and toddlers and children and even animals, you'll see a very congruent affect. In other words, whatever they're showing in their body language will be congruent to what's going on inside them. So if a baby will be showing unbridled laughter and giggling when something funny is happening, or maybe screaming when they really want something and they're angry and their whole face gets screwed up, or crying because mum isn't there or whatever it is. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about reactive emotions. And in adults, we can still have highly reactive emotions. They don't tend to look quite as obvious with the affect. In other words, what we're displaying in our face and body language may not completely match what's going on inside us, but nonetheless, we're reacting. We have this we call it trigger for a reason, right? Emotions get triggered because it's just a sudden spark, a catalyst. It's like putting a match to a pile of wood and poof, up it goes. So we're just rawly expressing our emotion and reacting to whatever stimulus is in front of us, whether it's a person that said something that's upset us, or we've suddenly been thrown into fear, or the good emotions as well. We can react positively as well. So there's not really a lot of thought with this. It's just a kind of an instant physical reaction, and then we express it in our body language or however we act. Now, conversely, we've also become very good at repressing our emotions at this level. I've lumped it all in the one level because you could broadly say that this is the unconscious level. So this is the level where we're not really controlling or mastering our emotions at all, rather reacting. So just the emotions are firing up and we're doing an action based on them, or we're repressing them, dissociating from them, shutting them down, getting rid of them. And that is also an unconscious process. Little children and infants will do this as well. They have done studies in attachment trauma on what happens when little babies are neglected and left for long, long periods without any kind of feedback or human contact. And what they found was that they would go from extreme, they would go firstly from distress, which is the natural instinct to cry for attention. Then they would go into rage and express it, which is where the scream gets really angry. And then they would go into what's called apathy, where everything just shuts down and a kind of a hopeless despair manifests. And that is a natural mechanism of dissociation or repression, where the baby is now no longer feeling its original distress, right? It's shut it down, it's disowned it, it's repressed it. Why? Because it was too painful to feel and the needs weren't being met. And the body can't sustain a distressed or angry or highly emotional range like that for too long, right? It needs to cope, it needs to survive. And so it shuts down the emotions. And so our very first taste of repressing emotions will no doubt have happened in childhood at some stage. And while most listeners here today will not have been highly neglected like those babies, there's going to be some emotional need that wasn't fulfilled in your childhood, which you had to just shut away. Or there might have been some kind of emotions either in your family, or it could have been in your society as well, emotions that were not okay to be expressed. Right. So we all learn that. We all learn what's okay and what's not okay. And for girls, unfortunately, it's often anger, especially in, I guess I would see them as more conservative Western cultures like Australia or England, where, we tend not to be too expressive in families, emotionally expressive. So in families like that, and I grew up in one of them, being angry didn't really seem to have any benefit whatsoever in the family. I didn't see my parents getting angry. If I got angry, I was kind of punished or sent to my room. So I just learned that anger is not okay. Okay, so I have to go to a different emotion here. So I learned to repress anger. And like a lot of girls, I would find a shortcut to a different emotion, like a bypass emotion, which was more anxiety or tears. So for years and years and years, and I mean until I was in my 30s and I started doing trauma therapy for this stuff, I would just cry when I was angry. So that's an example of repressing an emotion. And it's quite well known in our society as well that men often repress the sadder emotions, the tears and the grief, that girls find those easier to feel because society has taught us that. So yeah, I very clearly remember the first time in my mid 30s when I was doing this trauma therapy, and I actually caught my anger in the moment of a confrontation. And it was a banal confrontation. It was some silly argument I was having with my husband. But I remember him saying something, and I caught this feeling in my guts of, oh, I'm I'm angry. And it was a revelatory because prior to that, I had been always defaulting into tears or running away or anxiety. And so bringing my anger back as part of my emotional range was so important. It was so healthy for me, right? Because we actually, that's something I haven't said yet, but we really need all of our emotions. They are GPSs, they are guidance systems for our body and our being to tell us what we want and what we don't want, what feels good and what doesn't feel good. Yeah, so they begin to help us mold our lives and figure out who we are and what we want to be. But unfortunately, when we repress them, we kind of warp our personality in the process. So in my case, by repressing anger, I became a chronic people pleaser that couldn't say no to anybody. So every time there was any kind of confrontation in my world, I would just run away from it or say yes, just to avoid the trouble. All the while, fearful that someone would get angry at me and then I wouldn't know what to do with it. And I probably would have just gone to pieces emotionally. So that's what I mean by a warping of a personality. It's not a natural human thing to do that. If you have like the, I don't know, if we take like a ideal version of what it would be like to grow up on this planet in a healthy way, right? That person should be able to feel their emotions healthily and express them healthily. But for me, it was all repressed. So repressed energy like that, repressed emotions, they will come out somewhere else. And this is the problem with it. Well, it's a problem, but it's also the learning, right? I don't want to problematize everything here. In this area of level 1, we really get to play in the clay of who am I and why am I doing this? And we kind of get to figure ourselves out like this and, you know, pull back the curtain and see that the Wizard of Oz is actually just a little man, right? Because all those things that we're so afraid of, basically our own emotions, are actually just like little children wanting us to be there for them, wanting us to acknowledge them. So emotions can seem big and scary, but actually they're not. And when we start to step into level 2, that's when we learn that. But just going back to level 1, first of all, just to finish up on that, to say that, yeah, it's a time of learning to see where your blind spots are, and all the things that you learn in level 1 are going to be really necessary, right? It's not like you failed. It's not like you're stuck there because you're a bad person or you had a bad upbringing. And if only, okay, sure, there might be some people who have healthier ways of expressing emotions, but all of this stuff can be used to ultimately further our spiritual journey and bring us closer to self-love and self-forgiveness and all the good stuff, right? So try not to have judgment for yourself no matter where you are, but know that if you are reacting a lot, just off the cuff, no control, blurting out emotions, it could even be like passive aggressively. You might be, you get those emails. Are you one of those people where you get an email that triggers you and you just fire an answer back really angrily? Then you're being reactive, right? So yeah, what's required to, I guess, move out of level 1 is self-awareness. You begin to sense that, wait a minute, there is something going on here. There's some mechanism that I'm doing, some pattern. You want to look for patterns, and the world will give you plenty of feedback about your patterns. So as you develop that self-awareness, you can begin to go, wait a minute, this is not what I want, because my reactions are creating a reality that perhaps I don't like, because reactive emotions by their very nature are going to cause reactive emotions to fire up in other people. And probably if you're living in level 1, you've got some conflicts going on in your life, some really bitter ones, some terrible arguments with neighbors or family, or, people let you down, or I can't believe this person and that person, and a lot of blaming. And maybe you're either blaming other people or you're blaming yourself, that everyone else is bad, everyone else is out to get me, I'm a victim. So victim consciousness kind of lives in this as well, down here in level 1. Cool. So when you think you've had enough of that, right, that's when you start to step into level 2. And maybe it's because you got to rock bottom. Maybe it's because you started to use an addiction to assist you and you realize you want some help for that. For me, it was a severe mental health crisis in 2010, which, as many of you know who follow my channel, led to a diagnosis of schizophrenia and a whole lot of medication and in and out of hospital kind of a life, which I was not going to do for 20 years, much as the doctors wanted to tell me that that was my prognosis and I probably would be unwell for the rest of my life. I thought, no, I'm going to dive into trauma therapy. I'd read a book early in my 20s called The Primal Scream by Dr. Arthur Yanoff, which is, unfortunately, he's ridiculed currently in this day and age. He was one of the sort of the 70s psychiatrists, the heyday of, transpersonal psychology and all sorts of really interesting things happening in the 70s. Somehow he got ridiculed. His therapy was called scream therapy, and it was done in like a padded room where you got to express your emotions. That's what it was for. You got to scream, you got to be angry, you got to hit things. And I did that. I don't know how many places in the world you can do primal therapy these days, but I was pretty hardcore. I was like, I want to be healed. I'm going to do this. That book had spoken to me years earlier, and I really wanted to do it. So I think I just Googled it and boom, found a psychologist that did it. Sure enough, she had a padded room. And she taught me so much about how to feel my feelings, right? And this is level 2. I call this level express and accept. So in the express and accept, we are finally learning how to just simply feel the emotion, right? Reacting is you're almost like jumping over the emotion and you're just going straight to the action to try to kind of avoid the emotion. You feel angry, right? So I'm going to flatten that person or get rid of the problem. Yeah. Whereas expressing it or feeling it, I should probably call it feeling and accepting. I don't know, but anyway, we'll go with express. That's where you're like, oh, wait a minute. This is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling angry. I now get to express that. So you're elongating your choice point somewhere in there. You're noticing what you're feeling, and you've got a little bit of time, not a lot yet, that comes later, but you've got a little bit of time to just figure out how you're going to express this. So rather than reacting and biting someone's head off or hurting yourself, turning to the bottle of booze, whatever it is that you've been using as your reaction crutch, you are now going to try to healthily express it. So it might be in therapy where you vent about how you feel. For me, it was a lot of recovery art. I made so many angry pictures with black and red and lightning bolts and clouds and tears and, anything I could think of to kind of express this darkness inside me. My therapist taught me some really wonderful expression tools that I could use to work with my emotions. One of the ones that I really love is awesome if you can't make a whole lot of noise where you're living. If you're living in a little unit block or something, you can hiss if you're angry. You can hiss like a snake. It's just as good as a scream, right? Screaming is fantastic as well. There was another little trick I did. I probably mentioned it in previous videos where I went into a forest and I dug a hole and I screamed into the hole. I just screamed with all of my heart. And oh my goodness, it was so cathartic, right? So how do you express these emotions so they don't hurt you and they don't hurt anyone else? You are feeling them. You are absolutely feeling them when you're in this stage. And that's a big step. That's a big step forward, because in level 1, you were just reacting to get rid of them, or you were repressing them. You didn't even know you were doing it and walking around like a little bit of a robot. But now in level 2, you're actually welcome to humanity. You are a human being and you have emotions, right? So you learn in this level to accept yourself as a human being and to accept all these emotions. And this level can go on for a long time. And I'm still coming in, I'm still regularly making trips into this level. Just when I thought I've truly accepted all parts of myself, some shitty emotion will turn up, which I'll have to just go back and feel and express and accept. And this level is all about, if the first level was about learning self-awareness, this level is about learning self-love. Right? You are learning to just love yourself as you are unconditionally. And perhaps for the first time in your life, give yourself that validation that your feelings are okay, because you might not have had that as a child. So, it's going to take some reprogramming and some unlearning of it's not okay. Oh my God, it's not okay to feel this shitty or this sad or this angry. I'm such an evil person. Like, all these stories surround our feelings of emotions. But in this level, you're just stripping it back so that it is pure emotion. And at this point, I actually want to show you guys a picture that I drew to kind of illustrate these levels of mastery. And you'll see here the middle one, the little, it's like these are supposed to be Russian dolls, babushka dolls, because really this whole model is about expanding out. When I say levels, they're not one on top of each other like that, like a ladder. They're actually more like this. They're expansion of yourself, right? So the middle one there, that's your react and repress. And you can see there that I used anger as the emotion to highlight this particular level. But you could have any emotion in that. And then the second one is express and accept. And that one I depicted as grief, because a beautiful psychologist that I worked for a long time used to tell me that every therapy is really grief therapy. And basically, under every negative emotion we have, there is grief, right? So if you're carrying a lot of anger and you work through that in therapy, you will eventually get to grief. Grief at what you didn't get. That could be, you can actually grieve over what you've never had, or grief over what you lost, or grief over what could have been, or even grief over what you did, right? Underneath remorse and regret is also grief. Grief over the person that you could have been, or the choices that you could have made, that you wanted to make, but you didn't make. So grief I think when you start hitting grief, in a way, it's a good sign. You're having a good purge. Grief is so many emotions. It's not just one thing. It's not just sadness. It's more than that. It's a releasing. So I did another video on grief, which I encourage you to watch if you're kind of going through a lot of grief at the moment and you want to explore that more deeply, because it is a really beautiful, cleansing, powerful emotion. And so I think when you're starting to hit the end of level 2, when you're starting to come to the edge of that and explore all that you've learned and you're ready for that next stage, you can expect a lot of grief. We'll be clearing you out, preparing you for the third level, which I've drawn here as the happy level, the sunny level. And it is the level of choose and create. Choose and create. Okay, might put that up in a second again. So level 3, you get to a point where you're so good at feeling your emotions, you know what you're feeling, you own them, you take responsibility for them. That's the other thing about level 2. You take responsibility for your emotions. You're not blaming anybody else for them now. They just are. It's like the weather inside you. When you're sad, you deal with it. When you're angry, you deal with it. You know what to do. You know how to do it. You get really good at level 2. All right. Then you start to be ready for level 3. And this is the level that, like I said, is the highest level I've got to so far. And I'm still, it doesn't end. And that's why I want to show you this again, because all these parts are still in you. There are times when I am reactive and I can feel it. And then what I do is I try not to splatter that on anybody else. I just try to take myself away, get myself back into level 2, expressing and accepting. And then I get into a space where I can choose and create. And what am I talking about here? This is where you get to choose what emotion you want to feel and create from that place. You get to create your reality. This is where manifestation comes in. Because if we're walking about the world unconsciously, with reactive emotions bubbling inside us or repressed ones sort of festering inside us, that's going to accumulate in our energy field as a particular frequency, right? And frequency is everything when it comes to manifestation. So if there's a lot of funky emotions in there, you're going to be sitting at a pretty funky aggregate frequency that you're emitting out into the world and will be getting feedback on, because the universe is a mirror to your frequency, right? So again, this is a kind of a whole masterclass in and of itself, but I will just reference here the beautiful Dr. David Hawkins and his levels of consciousness for you to go and have a look at, the calibration, the energetic calibration of all of the emotions, which is another way of saying frequency. So of course, the lower emotions are very low frequencies. They literally emit from our bodies as kind of spiky, jagged, discordant energies, frequencies coming from our bodies, coming from our heart. And as we get higher into states of, well, the tipping point is courage, right? So it's not even an emotion that most people would associate with being a super good emotion, but courage is a tipping point. Courage is essentially a positive emotion, positive frequency. And then we rise up through acceptance and willingness and joy and peace and love and bliss. All the good stuff is above that. So when we begin to play in this level, we actually get to choose, right? We might start after some trigger in anger, but because we know what we know and because we're practiced at feeling and processing our emotions, we can climb up this kind of levels of consciousness ladder and find ourselves in beautiful frequencies quite quickly, quite easily. And this is choosing. We are now choosing. We might be in anger for a moment, but then we say to ourselves, wait a minute, do I want to feel this? How can I transmute this emotion into a higher one? Not how can I ignore this emotion, repress this emotion, get rid of this emotion. That's not what this is about. It's about transmuting it, alchemizing it. Right? That's how powerful we are. That is the power of creation, that we can take one thing, transform it into another. So we can take anger and we can transform that into a beautiful emotion. So how do you do this in practice? Well, for me, it still can take several days in the worst case scenario where, if a real major trigger comes along and I feel really angry or victimized or hurt or upset, I am not going to act from that frequency because I am learning emotional mastery, right? I'm going to wait. I'm going to process. I'm going to feel that feeling. I'm going to express it if I need to, maybe to some trusted people that, don't mind if I swear a bit. And then I'm going to use all of my personal tools to help me. And I like to use logic. I spend a lot of time analyzing maybe what the other person would be thinking, what would be motivating them, why would they be acting in this way? That's all analysis. I also will do my best to come to a place of compassion for them in that process, thinking, okay, well, they're very wounded. That's why they're lashing out at me. So I'm going to be compassionate. And if I can, I will go into forgiveness. And that's reasonably easy for me. I've been practicing forgiveness for years now, and I can also post a couple of videos about that for you, because that's a beautiful quality and I suppose a little section of emotional mastery, which is really great to play with because it's difficult. But if you can master forgiveness for yourself and others, you are well on the way to a life of bliss and happiness. You know, the shamans, I recently did a shamanic course with Dr. Alberto Violdo, and he said that in the Andes, the traditions that he works with, the shamans say that your quality of life is determined by what you eat, how you love, how you dream, and how you forgive. How you forgive. Yeah, it's a really big one. So forgiveness is part of the alchemy, right? If you can get yourself to forgive, and then you can act from that place. So, you know, if you're triggered, you transmute, you alchemize. And then when you're in a neutral or above frequency, that's how I like to look at it, you can then act. You then take action. You contact that person, or you do the thing that you need to do, or sometimes it's no action. All right, just depends. That is choosing and creating. You are choosing your frequency, you are alchemizing it, and you are creating from a higher place. And watch as your reality transforms into a positive expression of the highest virtuous states that you can muster, because you're not acting from a negative frequency. It's all right. It's 100% all right to have all of your feelings, all the shitty ones, all the annoying ones, all the angry ones, all the ones that make you feel like a 5-year-old. All of that stuff is okay. But if you're playing at level 3, you don't act on it, right? You wait, you transmute, you transform, you act from your highest place. Because you know, as the wise master that you are, that that will be beneficial for you, and it will be beneficial for your brothers and sisters on planet Earth. And of course, for anyone watching this video, I'm quite sure that your highest values will be aligned with something like peace, harmony, love for all. Right? That's why you've come here. So you're attracted to this video and to my vibration. So if we really want to live by the values of peace and harmony and love and forgiveness, we are going to want to act from that place ourselves, and thus share that vibration with the world. And you can have as much going on in your private world as you like. It doesn't matter. You don't have to beat yourself up for that. But if you can transmute it and act from the higher place, then I promise you life will be a lot more beautiful for you and everyone around you. So yeah, that's probably all I have to say on it. I feel like I've kind of got there, and I hope that you can see how one is not better than the other, that it's just all a whole lot of learning. And yeah, it is really nice to be in a place of choosing and creating. And you know, if you're not quite there yet and you've listened to what I've had to say so far, you know, just ask yourself, ask yourself and your higher self, okay, how can I begin this journey of actually choosing? And next time you feel a strong emotion, perfect time to just breathe, do some journaling, and ask, how can I choose from this place? And see what happens. Cool. All right, beautiful people. I probably talked long enough. As I said, if you've got any questions or comments or experiences of your own with this, I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. So do take care, and I will see you again for another video. Namaste.